You're listening to Media Savvy Moms with Melody and Marilyn. Open, honest conversations about parenting and pornography. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today, we'll be talking about how to get off the fence and talk to your kids about pornography. Marilyn, what do we mean when we say get off the fence?
We just worry that we're going to say the wrong thing or we're going to do something to make it worse. But today we want to talk about just doing it.
We just want to get unstuck. It happens to us in life, just doing hard things in general, doesn't it? Marilyn was telling me about this Christmas dinner where she was just stuck. Tell us your turkey story.
Well, hosting Christmas dinner usually falls to me. Like, we take turns during the holidays, but somehow I always get Christmas dinner. So every year the same people come. Every year it's pretty much the same menu, and I feel like every year I still stress. So this year we have my brother's family, my parents, my cousins, and I have 2 new daughter-in-laws. We throw in a couple of friends. So basically we've got 18 people. So I get the biggest turkey I can find, and I really put it in the oven too late. And I'm totally cool with the preparation for this. I like planning it. We're kind of traditional. I get the fancy china out. We rearrange the furniture so we can all sit at one table. And I try to make it, just like the magazines, and I have fun preparing. But when it came to serving the food, that's a whole other story, because my turkey wasn't cooked in time. And not only that, but I took my friend's advice, and she insisted, you have to cook your turkey upside down. It's juicier, it's better. But she didn't tell me how to flip a 20-pound carcass, Well, it's got the internal temperature of 180 degrees because, of course, at the last minute, you're supposed to flip this thing.
Oh, no.
And I've got 18 people in my kitchen because that's the hub. We've got a few appetizers out. And I just, I'm feeling it like, how do we get this turkey done? How do I look presentable? Like, I'm worried about things that don't matter. My husband's running around the house with the camera. He loves to take these beautiful pictures. And I look into the lens of that camera, and I showed you an image, right?
Yes.
Of what I look like. And it just
crazy person.
Yeah. I just, like, my eyes are popping out of my head. And what I was feeling at that moment was, like, get me out of here. Can I just, like, have a Christmas story moment where maybe the dog eats the turkey and let's order Chinese? I did not want to go forward. I'd done all this preparation, but I was ready to quit and walk out.
How did you get the turkey on the table?
I think actually having that moment where I could vent into the camera lens and show my husband, like, what was going on inside me, like, just getting it out there and having
I think we need that image, Marilyn. I think we need the crazy person, like, pulling hair out image.
I didn't scream so everyone in the house could hear it, but I screamed into the lens and just got those feelings out. And I was like, okay, we have got to do this. Like, this is game time.
And don't we do that sometimes inside when we have to do something parenting wise that we just don't want to do? We have these things, we have these hard things we want to do. We feel just like you did with the guests. We feel overwhelmed. We're looking around. We think we have this perfect picture in our mind of the way it's supposed to go.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
yeah.
You have your Martha Stewart idea of it's got to be like this. And I think it's significant too, how you said, and my friend told me I was supposed to, right?
Exactly.
Like, there's this, like, miracle way it's supposed to turn out nice. And isn't it like that with talking to our kids about pornography? Like, there's this magical way it's supposed to go, and the experts say, and this article I read said, but it just doesn't work out that way, does it?
No, when it comes right down to it, you've got to spit the words out. You've got to figure out how to do it according to your, like, what feels right for you.
Right. So we have 3 tips here, and they are, number 1, admit out loud what feels uncomfortable. Number two, appreciate the real cost of silence. And three, put yourself in your child's brain. So first, admitting out loud what feels uncomfortable. This is one of the best unstuck tips that we have. So many of just the words that we have to say when we're talking about pornography, just the word pornography is hard for a lot of parents to say. Didn't you kind of have to even get over that?
Oh, I had to
Carolyn?
get over that. Yeah. Now it's so easy for me to say it, but the first, I don't know, the first 10 times, the first 12 times I tried to talk to my kids about this, I just had to swallow hard and just do it. And I practiced first. It's kind of like when I screamed into the camera. I just had to say it. You know, I had a conversation with my spouse, kind of what would I do in this situation? But I just had to get comfortable saying the word pornography as it was making a tuna fish sandwich and saying, honey, can you go grab me or a can of tuna down in.
Yeah. Right. And then, there are anatomy words that we may have to use when we're talking about pornography or sex with our children. And even just saying the word sex, like my kids are like, oh, Mom, that's embarrassing. This is awkward, and we say, it's just like saying elbow. It's like saying toe. It's like, right. We have to get to where we say these words I had a friend tell me, practice in the shower, saying these words till they're comfortable in your mouth, till you don't feel like you have to giggle, till your heart doesn't necessarily race, and it takes practice, right?
It does. And the first few times you have these conversations, it's still going to feel awkward. We see everything in life edited. We see those Food Network shows and every ingredient is cut up and prepped and ready to go. And then magically the finished product comes out of the oven. But when you're when you're cooking in real life, that counter, for me, it's a mess.
Right.
And my hands are dirty. And when you're talking about pornography or you're having any kind of, it doesn't have to be that, any kind of big conversation with your kids, think of it like you're cooking and that counter is going to get messy and you're going to have to wipe up a few spills because
that's life.
That's life.
Real parenting. It's like that, having these talks where we think that it's supposed to be a certain way, but it's okay that there's a mess around it.
It is okay.
Yeah.
So, and one of the tricks I learned, and like people say, oh, just make light of this situation. You're like, how can I make light of pornography?
It's a serious topic, right?
It's a serious topic. But I knew I was, my body language was not relaxed when I was having this conversation the first time. So here I am trying my hardest, having this conversation, being way too serious with my kids. And then I just kind of had to say, look, Mom's going to make mistakes. It's okay. You can laugh at me. You can laugh at how stressful this is. And that changed everything.
Open communication. It's okay to be uncomfortable and then to admit to your kids, because we don't have to be perfect. And it's okay to laugh at ourselves. And it's okay to introduce humor where we can and just to learn to laugh together. So yeah, we've got a good start on this. And why don't we take a little break?
Sounds good.
When parents share with me their concern over a child struggling with pornography, I always recommend they check out Fortify. Good kids get caught in the porn trap every single day. Falling in is easy, but getting out requires effort and support. Fortify is an amazing recovery tool that can help your teen learn to develop their own plan towards success. It's easy to sign up. It's designed to engage, and it's free for teens. Best of all, Fortify is science-based and has a proven track record of helping thousands of individuals find happiness by regaining their freedom from pornography. Visit joinfortify.com/media-savvy-moms to learn more.
All right, we are back. We are talking about some strategies to get off the fence and talk to our kids about pornography. We've been talking about, our first point Admit out loud what feels uncomfortable, and talk to our kids, get those words out of our mouth. And now we're going to walk a little bit down the path and talk about appreciating the real cost of silence. So, Marilyn, what are some of our deeper fears? I know we're afraid of saying the scary words,
Yeah.
but I think talking about pornography to our children is deeper than that. What are some of the
Sure.
deeper fears?
Yeah. So once we get over the vocabulary and we are comfortable with that, we still often, I think the biggest worry that parents have is that bringing up the subject will spark a curiosity in their kids.
Right. Parents say to me all the time.
Yeah.
But if I bring it up, then they're going to go hunt for it. But what if I tell them about pornography and then they go search for it online and then they start pulling it up?
Yeah.
So what do you say when parents ask you about that?
Well, I think we're not acknowledging the reality that our kids are living in, and that is that pornography is targeting them, pornography is finding them,
Mm-hmm.
and what we are saying is not inspiring the curiosity. It's the environment that they're living in. They are growing up in a very hypersexualized society. So it's in mainstream media, it's in advertising, like the curiosity, the things that spark curiosity is in all those things.
Right. And the thing that we say is it's not if your kids are exposed, it's when they are exposed. Like, it's not a matter of, well, if we don't bring it up, then it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It is. That's just the fact of the matter in the world that we live in.
Yeah, I would say that by middle school, the peer pressure to use pornography is at its greatest because you've got curiosity at its peak, you've got hormones that are beginning to kick in, and you've got this pushing away from parents. I mean, that's just a natural part of development where you're starting to identify more with your peers or wanting to identify with your peers. And so what your peers say, if they say, hey, I found this really cool website, you should go check it out. That's what our kids are
not
dealing
even
with.
that. They don't even have to wait to go visit a website. They say, hey, look right here on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
In their face, right?
So true. Yeah.
I mean, so many of the stories that I've read are of, an 8-year-old on the bus, and here it is in his face. Like, where is he going to go? What is he going to do? If we as parents haven't touched on that at that point, then, I mean, really what we're doing, talking to them, is putting ourselves in the driver's seat and deciding when this topic comes up. And
right.
So knowing it's going to happen, then we just get to decide when.
We get to do it. We get to do it in a safe way, creating a safe environment. They get to learn how to manage the information that's coming at them and the proper ways to deal with it.
Right,
so we're
exactly.
actually protecting our children's innocence rather than robbing our children's innocence.
I love that. That's such a better perspective. And also, when we initiate the conversation, we get to do it within the context of our family values. We get to teach them how we want them to deal with it instead of them being exposed on the playground. And then what do they do then? What context do they have to deal with this? So, and also I think it's worthwhile to bring up every family is different. We all have different backgrounds, and as we work together, as we're podcasting together and we're talking about this show, we come from different backgrounds for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And all of the things that we're going to talk about are so adaptable. There is no cookie cutter way to deal with pornography. And we just coming out, just right from the get-go, we know there's just no cookie cutter way to deal with these problems. And so we can't just, hand our kids a one-size-fits-all way to do this. And as we deal with these problems as a family and open up our conversations, then we can decide what works best for our specific child, what works for our specific family.
Well, yeah, because your script is going to be different than my script.
Absolutely.
But you'll also know, you've got 2 kids, I've got 5. I've realized that I can't have the same conversation with each child about
anything.
everything, right?
Really? Right.
Which is really unfortunate because I thought I figured it out.
Isn't it like that with anything with parents too?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like there's not just one way to cook a turkey, right?
Yeah.
They're like,
you don't have to put it on it.
We did a trash can turkey this year. I don't know
Oh
if you've ever done that. Yeah.
Oh, don't even start with that. Take the trash can out.
Look it up. Google it. It was amazing.
No, I will not.
Okay, so moving on, we need to remember to put ourselves in our child's brain. Don't we sometimes, I think, expect our kids to be like little adults? I think I do, and I think my husband does. And when it comes to the porn talk, this is really important because we need to remember our kids don't have little adult brains. They have child brains.
Yes.
So talk to us a little about the brain science, because this is important when we're talking about pornography.
I just love, I don't know, I have a fascination with development, child development, and the more I learn about how the brain develops, I really get intrigued by it. But a child's brain is completely different. Well, I mean, all the parts are there, but developmentally, it's different than yours and mine. So we have this prefrontal cortex that's doing a lot of reasoning for us. So we might be faced with an inappropriate picture, and we can say, "Oh, that's inappropriate. I saw it, but that was unfortunate." It's
right.
Your brain files it in the stuff do not remember.
Well, the prefrontal cortex controls a lot of things. It controls impulse control. It controls problem solving. And so these kind of things that we tell our kids, like, don't do that, don't do that. And they're like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen if I, jump off of this. Like, that's all prefrontal cortex kind of stuff.
It's why human children stay with their families for so long, because that prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until age 24. We have to remember that when they see an image that is inappropriate, that they are going to react differently. So everybody, like, pornography is designed to entice people. Yep. That's why it's created. But a child brain, they will not know why they're drawn to it, but it can elicit some, very strong feelings, and they have a harder time knowing how to process that information and actually say no to it.
Unless we give them a plan and help to teach them. Right.
Yes.
And so we get the brain science, and their brains are not fully developed, but I think we also need to address there's an emotional response that happens there, and particularly fear. They're going to experience fear for a number of reasons. Fear of the unknown. Like you said, they're not going to understand what's happening in their little body, because we're designed to react to pornography in a specific way. They're not going to be able to reconcile in their little minds, why am I feeling scared, stimulated, emotionally, impacted by this image, and unless we explain to them what's happening. And then add to that, if we're not addressing these things with them, they may have a fear of getting in trouble. They may.
Sure, especially if we've addressed them just on, like, really on the surface and said, you're going to see something inappropriate, just don't look at it.
Right. That's not enough.
If we're going to say, pornography's out there, but it's bad, and we leave the discussion there,
then how do they process? How do they, then they may be afraid they're going to disappoint us. So you add the fear of disappointing their parents. So in a way, if we're avoiding awkward subjects like sex and pornography, we're teaching our kids to not come to us. And that's not going to help anything. Then it puts them in an isolated position where we're not helping to resolve that fear, and we may drive them away and drive them to other sources to get their information, like the playground, like Google. And guess what happens if you Google some of these things? you get
Yeah.
more pornography and worse
And
things.
like one last thought on that is if we've never had if we've never used the word pornography, or if we've never connected the dots from the word pornography to what it is, they may not even know. It is possible. I read a story about a father confronting his son and saying, I found some images on your iPad that were porn. And he's like, I'm not looking at porn. Like, this is just a 9-year-old boy. He's like, I'm not looking at pornography. And then the dad explained further, and he's like, oh, I didn't know that was pornography. Like,
Oh,
I just assume like
I
that they have adult
right.
brains, and they
know the
think the way
vocabulary.
we think.
I heard a similar story like that about a mother who was telling her child over and over and over. They lived on a busy street. They lived they lived at an intersection, and she told the child over and over, stay away from the corner, stay away from the corner, never walk up to the corner. And he went, and she looked out the window and saw him standing out on the corner. And she walked out there and grabbed him by the scruff of his neck, and held him by the shoulders and said, I told you never to stand on the corner, this little bitty kid. And he looked at her and said, Mommy, what's a corner?
Exactly.
It's the same kind of thing. Like, how do we expect them to tell us if there's a problem, or to know what's going on, if we don't give them the vocabulary to teach, to tell us if there's an issue? So, all right. So great discussion on all of this, getting off the fence and talking to our kids. So Marilyn, why don't you go ahead and sum up for us?
Okay. So we just want to sum it up. There are 3 things we need to do to get off that fence, and it's to admit out loud and practice what feels uncomfortable. And that's just like screaming into the camera, just to get it off your chest and getting it out there. So that's the first hurdle. And then understand the cost of silence. And we do not want to be silent on this issue because our kids are getting it on another front if we're not getting to them. And finally, acknowledge the vulnerabilities of a child's brain. So acknowledge that they may not know intuitively how to stay away from pornography. They won't. They need parents. That's why we are their parents.
Absolutely.
And in this day and age, this has to be part of the conversation.
All right. So, do we have a challenge for our listeners?
We absolutely have a challenge for our listeners this week. So you are going to have a conversation about pornography. And if you are brave enough, that conversation is going to start with your kids today. And if you are just really barely getting off that fence, then you're going to start that conversation with a good friend or your spouse. You're going to start using that word and start talking about it.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, remember to subscribe. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, or email us directly at mediasavvymoms@gmail.com. We'd love to get your feedback.